Hi, everyone. Welcome, welcome, welcome. We will give it a few minutes as more people join. Welcome to this workshop on defining and combating imposter syndrome, and happy Friday. Amazing. Oh, I see some people I recognize in the chat, which is great. Do remember to type to everyone because I'm getting loads of messages coming to me, which is great, but I think everyone should see what you're typing if you want that to be the case. Do let us know where you're joining from in the world. Yes, I'm really looking forward to this. Some people in Cambridge and Bristol and London. So we will start in about 2 minutes. Amazing. Oh, someone's in Kent. Oh, hi, Nina and the Blue Money team. Oh, Joanne from London. Amazing. Hey, Joanne. Oh, thank you, Nayet. Appreciate that. Oh, someone's in sunny Birmingham. We do not have sun in London. I'm very jealous. Very jealous. Yes, this is going to be recorded and sent with some extra materials as well. Good question. Just for those joining, welcome, happy Friday. Welcome to this session on defining and combating imposter syndrome. This is going to be all about what imposter syndrome is, how you can combat it in your daily work lives, and maybe even in your personal life as well. And yeah, I'm going to share some theory, some case studies. We're going to do some exercises. So if you don't have a pen or paper, please grab some because you will need it at some point during this workshop as well. Yes, Charlotte's joining from cloudy London. Yes, to that. Perfect. So I think let's start. Welcome, everyone. As I said, welcome to this session on defining and combating imposter syndrome. We're going to cover the theory, some practical exercises, and I really want it to be reflective and interactive. So please keep spamming and bombarding the chat as we're doing now. I think it's really useful for us to have the discussion and engage throughout this session as well. Can't go without saying thank you to Ellie and the We Are the City team. Really good to be back for these We Are virtual sessions. They do so many amazing sessions covering a range of different career related topics. So do stay attuned to the content that they have and the workshops that they're hosting as well. So thank you for having me again from the team as well. Okay, let's dive into what today will look like. So the plan for today, I'll talk a bit about the Now Talking Network for those of you that haven't interacted with us before. I'll cover some of the theory behind what imposter syndrome is. I'll share some examples of how it might show up, some case studies, and we'll do some practical exercises. And I'll share some tips around combating imposter syndrome and close hopefully with about 10 or 15 minutes for Q&A at the end, and then close with a bit more information about the network and how you can stay in touch with us as well. So for those of you that don't know about the Now You're Talking network, it was essentially a community that I started when I joined the corporate world a good number of years ago. And it was all about recognizing I wanted to have a safe space with other women to talk about career and personal development related topics that was away from our companies and basically creating a millennial version of an old boys club, recognizing that a lot of old boys networks were all about sharing opportunities, knowledge, jobs with each other, and that we needed a millennial, more positive, more open environment like that to recreate it as well. So now, a couple of years later, we are still a community, but we're also a business, and we're all about helping women earn more and be more confident. We're a mix of entrepreneurs, side hustlers, professionals, and we host workshops like this, in-person events, and we talk a lot about not only personal and career development topics, but also side hustles and entrepreneurship as well. Really, really passionate about that. We also have a fortnightly newsletter. So if you're not subscribed, do go onto our website, www.nytnetworks.com, and do subscribe. And we're all about kind of just sharing opportunities. Most of our members are in tech, financial, professional services, but we're open to everyone and just showcasing the amazing things that can happen when women come together and support each other in real life, and virtually as well. So just to give you a flavor of some of our events, we have a Level Up Careers workshops. So workshops like this that run for about an hour, virtually and in person, all about women sharing ideas. We love being super practical. So what you'll notice in this workshop, it's very practical, very much about things that you can embed into your career from today or even next week. So really thinking about the practical exercises that we could do. We have networking events, like you can see on the slide, that was pre-pandemic. But we are bringing those back now. So ways to meet people and engage with like-minded women as well. Towards the end of the year, we do a vision board event where we get loads of people together and create vision boards and talk about the art of manifestation and believing in your dreams and how do you make sure that they come to pass, which I really love. Always love that session. Just have some nice drinks and food and really think about the future and where we want our lives to be. And then every year we have a side hustle showcase. So as I said, we're really passionate at talking about side hustles, which are essentially additional ways to gain new skills or income outside of your day job. And I think some of the people online today have attended our side hustle showcases in the past, but they're really amazing. They're all about celebrating female side hustlers and entrepreneurs in the UK. We've done it in person and virtual since 2019. Really amazing event. And we're going to be doing one at the Roundhouse next month. So I'll share more details about that towards the end of this workshop. But yes, very passionate about side hustles for people, particularly women, to feel more comfortable and gain new skills and also have that sense of ownership that they might not have in their day jobs currently as well. Really important. And it's worth noting now, post-pandemic, that actually 1 in 3 UK adults has a side hustle. So that might look like a YouTube channel, it might look like selling on Vinted, it might look like a whole side business that they run, but it's so exciting to see that the UK is really and truly becoming a side hustle economy that is being powered by people doing multiple jobs, not only because some people might have to, but also because they want to gain new skills and learn new things as well. Yes, someone said, please can I confirm the website again? Sure. www.nytnetworks.com, or you can search NYT Network on Instagram or Twitter, and we're on LinkedIn as well. Perfect. So I've been talking for a couple of minutes, but haven't even done an introduction to myself. So my name is Mary Agbesanwa. My day job is in fintech sales. So I work in a B2B fintech that is all about helping people access the stock market so that they can invest and invest well. And then outside of that, I do a range of different things. I'm the founder of this amazing network. I'm a careers blogger, so often writing about careers and navigating your career, particularly for millennials and Gen Z. I'm a board trustee, so sit on the board of Girl Guiding, which is the largest charity in the UK for young women. And I also do some part-time lecturing at Imperial Business School on fintech. So if you're interested in fintech, careers, female empowerment, all that good stuff, Always happy to have a chat. But the Now You're Talking Network isn't just me. You can see on the right-hand side some of the other lovely ladies that are all unified in this passion to help women earn more and be more confident, and dedicate some of their time doing different roles within the network as well. Thank you, Joanne, for sharing the website link. I appreciate that. So let's get into the content. Really excited to talk a bit more about defining imposter syndrome. So as I said, we love to keep things practical here at the Now You're Talking Network. And I wanted to start off with a quote because we love quotes. Quotes are so powerful. Doubt kills more dreams than failure ever will. And that's a quote by Susie Kasem, American film director. Really, really powerful. I think there's no better quote to start a workshop on talking about imposter syndrome. And why I think it's important is that this quote really emphasizes that when you have imposter syndrome, you don't even get to the point of failure. You've actually stopped your progress in the tracks by saying, actually, I'm not good enough. Actually, I can't achieve that. So your doubt is killing more of your dreams than failure even will, because you're not even letting yourself to get to that point of failure. So already some of you might be hearing that and thinking, wow, that's so powerful, that's so poignant. Welcome to the session. We're going to be sharing more and unpacking more about that as well. Okay, so what exactly is imposter syndrome? If you're anything like me, you started to see this term imposter syndrome in magazines, in blogs, in articles, in everywhere, basically. Some celebrities are even talking about it. But let's really unpack what actually it means. So it's the idea that you've only succeeded due to luck and not because of your work. So it's that feeling of saying, actually, I'm just really lucky. When am I going to get found out? How did I get here? Feeling like an imposter in your environment. It's anyone who isn't able to internalize and own their success. So you're not able to accept all the success that you've achieved to date. And instead you're saying, actually, I don't think I belong here. This isn't quite working out. And you're kind of cutting yourself short. And it was first identified by psychologists Pauline Rose-Clance and Suzanne Imes. So really, again, for those of you that like kind of theory and research, do definitely check out their work. Really interesting on imposter syndrome and what it is. So just to unpack that a bit further, it's really interesting to start with this graphic on the right-hand side. So the assumption when you have imposter syndrome is that what I know is this small yellow circle, and what I think others know is this large thing. Everyone else knows so much more than me. They're so much smarter than me. They've been in the organization so much longer than me. And they have all of this knowledge, which is like the turquoise circle. But in reality, it's much more like the second set of Venn diagrams. So if you see the reality segment, what others know is a similar size to what you know. And actually, there's an area of overlap where you both understand certain things, but there's so much that you know that other people don't know as well. And I think when I saw this diagram, it was just a perfect way to explain imposter syndrome. Because when you have imposter syndrome, you really think that everything in your brain, everyone else knows, that you don't have anything to add. You contributing in a meeting is not worthwhile. But when you recognize the reality is that you have so much to share, you have the same amount of knowledge as others, and actually you probably know things that other people don't as well. So studies have shown that 70% of all people feel like imposters at one time or another. 70% of people have faced imposter syndrome. But when I asked my network, and I'm sure if you asked your network, particularly if they might be women as well, it feels like pretty much everyone has been through this. And I know even some of my male colleagues would say that they felt imposter syndrome as well. A KPMG study even found that 75% of female executives across industries have experienced imposter syndrome in their careers. How crazy is that? They become a female executive, they're at the kind of C-suite level across various different industries, and they feel like they've experienced imposter syndrome. So again, hopefully this makes you feel at least a bit more comfortable that this is something that we've all faced at various points in our lives, in our careers, and you're not alone in battling imposter syndrome. So I want to take a moment for us to reflect on imposter syndrome. Reflect for a moment. Have you experienced this before? I've now defined it for you. I've now given you a framework to think about imposter syndrome with the Venn diagrams. But just pause. When was the last time you experienced imposter syndrome? If you feel comfortable, you can share in the chat. But if you don't, just take a moment to think about that. Was it even today? Did you feel even like an imposter joining a work meeting this morning? Was it earlier this week? Or can you not recall? Is it something that you need to think about a bit further? So just let's pause for a moment and feel free to share in the chat. Amazing. I'm getting so many comments. I'm seeing people saying so often, every day, last week, very recently. Yes, you'll have the recording and the slides. Don't worry about that. Yeah, some people saying all the time. And I think it's important to pause and reflect on this, because often when we face imposter syndrome, we can just bury it somewhere. We know we're facing it. We know we feel like an imposter. It might show up as anxiety. And it can just feel like this feeling in our chest. But it's important to just pause and reflect on it as well. Yes, Olivia says sometimes in her new job, she's forgetting she knows other things and questioning maybe why they hired her as well. Yes, it can feel like that. So just some thoughts around imposter syndrome as we're reflecting that I think are really important. Have you thought about when your imposter syndrome arises? Are there certain situations? I always talk about meetings because I think for a lot of the women in Now You're Talking network, I know that meetings can be very overwhelming, particularly thinking about, am I speaking enough? Am I speaking too much? Am I speaking too loud? How am I coming across in this meeting? Maybe you're thinking about, how do I get rid of imposter syndrome? Maybe that's why you joined the session today, that you're just like, you know what, Mary really needs to cure me. I need to not feel this thing anymore. Maybe you're thinking, does everyone suffer from imposter syndrome? We've shown the stats about it being about 70% of people. You're wondering who else in your organization might be feeling like you are as well. And then I love this last question, which is, when is it imposter syndrome versus when am I just learning and growing? And I thought this is so powerful, because how do we learn to decipher when we're facing imposter syndrome versus when we are just learning and growing? When, like Olivia says, we've just joined a new role, we're 2 weeks in, and we're expecting ourselves to understand everything in the job. It's impossible. It can't be the case, because I'm sure that you applied for a role that is a stretch opportunity for yourself. I'm sure that if you ask other people, it took them 3, 6, maybe even 12 months to fully understand that everything that happens in your organization. So it's really important to think about how you define imposter syndrome in your head. Is this an imposter syndrome moment, or am I just on my journey of learning and growing and becoming a better career professional as I grow? Really, really interesting things to think about. Yes, Asma, thank you for being open and honest, saying sometimes you feel like a fraud. I really appreciate all of these honest and open comments, and we'll continue to unpack that throughout this session today as well. So now I want to go into some case studies about how imposter syndrome shows up. So again, this might be somewhat triggering for some of you. And if you relate to any of these and you feel comfortable, feel free to share in the chat and we'll go through them. Setting extremely high goals for yourself. I know some people in this workshop right now that set extremely high goals for themselves. They say, this 2023, I want to launch a community. I want to write a book. I want to get promoted. I want to go on 5 holidays. I want to 10x my side hustle income, all within 1 year. Are you someone that does that? And just setting goals that, and it's not wrong to goal set. I mean, we talk about goal setting all the time in the Now You're Talking network, but are you doing it in a way that you're basically inevitably going to fail, because we only have a finite amount of time in a day, especially if we want to have good work-life balance. So that can be a way that your imposter syndrome is showing up, that you're just pushing and pushing and pushing yourself in a way that is ultimately unrealistic. Letting small mistakes cause you to question your own competence. Again, I've seen this in so many teams that I've managed, particularly women, just beating themselves up about small mistakes that honestly, no one else has even realized. A spelling mistake in an email to a client, getting a figure wrong in a internal meeting. Remember that most times people are thinking about themselves. Honestly, they're thinking about how they look on Zoom. They're thinking about what they're going to have for lunch. But honestly, if you let too many small mistakes question your complete competence of your role, this could be a sign of imposter syndrome. Being afraid to speak up in a work meeting because you're afraid of looking stupid. Saying, actually questioning yourself again and again and again, and then looking maybe virtually to your left and seeing your maybe male colleague just say whatever comes to his mind. Just say everything. Oh, I think that. And he might be wrong, but he's still saying it. So it's really important that we think, why am I filtering myself? Why am I doubting myself? I'm not even getting to that point of failure, relating back to the quote I shared earlier. Not feeling like a natural genius. Wow. Yes, this can be another one that I see plagues a lot of women in particular. Just not feeling like a natural genius, joining a new job, joining a new team and saying, actually, why does everyone know more than me? Of course, they've been here longer than you. I'd be surprised if they didn't know more than you. So this idea of being a natural genius, someone that just sees information, remembers it, that can hold so much information in their brain, it's not possible. It's not possible. And no one is a natural genius. A lot of things take effort and learning and time. Associating the need to ask for help with meaning you are a failure or a fraud. This one, if I'm being really honest, means a lot to me, because I think I struggled for a long time, particularly as I started to get more senior in my career, with delegating, asking for help. And I just felt like, I don't want to ask for help. I want to seem like I've got everything under control. Like, I want people to look at me and think, how does she do it? Everything is just fabulous. And I actually started to realize the more senior you get, the more of your role is about management, delegation, and empowering the people below you to become leaders eventually themselves. So maybe that's something you relate to. And then lastly, being a Superman or Superwoman, pushing yourself to work harder than those around you. And that might show up like just saying, you know what, doing so much of that office housework. You might have heard those kind of terms. They say, oh, we need to buy a birthday present for someone. I'll do it. We need to organize a team social. I'll do it. We need to do this and I'll do it. You haven't even heard what they're saying and you're saying you're going to do it. That can be another sign of imposter syndrome, a feeling that you have to be the best, that you need to keep pushing yourself forward to prove your self-worth, to prove that you deserve to be in the company. But actually, you don't need to be grateful to anyone, because you've got the role, you're in the company, and you are amazing. So you don't need to kind of feel like you need to be this superwoman working 24/7 all the time. So these are just some examples of how imposter syndrome might be showing up. I see the chat popping off, which is great. Do be honest and share. Is this something that you feel like you felt before? Any of these particularly relate to you? Yes, Olivia says the office mum. Yes, not feeling eloquent enough. I see Chelsea's point there. Yes, feeling that you might sound foolish, beating yourself up about small mistakes. Yep. Yep, the need to ask for help. Thank you so much for being super honest, everyone. As I said, some of this can be quite triggering, because we are unpacking things that are quite painful and might actually link to deeper feelings that we might have around why we need to people please people so much as well. Why are we always looking for validation from people? And we might need to unpack that elsewhere as well. So I thought it'd be good to give some examples of celebrities suffering from imposter syndrome, to really showcase that it's not just us mere mortals that suffer from imposter syndrome. People that we know and love and that we think have achieved everything suffer from imposter syndrome as well. So Michelle Obama, our girl, says the feeling of, am I good enough? And I don't know if the world should take me seriously, never really goes away. Wow. This is a lady that has been the first lady of the United States, and she is saying that feeling of, am I good enough? I don't know if people should take me seriously, never really goes away. What does that say to us? Do we have those feelings sometimes? How are we going to manage if they never really go away? And Tom Hanks says, no matter what we've done, there comes a point where you think, how did I get here? When are they going to discover that I am, in fact, a fraud and take everything away from me? Wow, that is so powerful. Like Tom Hanks, with all his success, is saying sometimes he has that feeling of actually maybe they're just going to turn up and say, you know what, we actually made a mistake. You shouldn't have made manager at this company and you should actually be fired. And I joke, but honestly, I know a lot of people have that feeling of like, even when their boss messages them that all doom is gonna break loose, that kind of catastrophizing is what they call it, might happen very often, where you're just like, oh my God, the world's coming to an end. My career is going to end. My job is going to fail. Do you find yourself doing that a lot? And does it give you some level of comfort knowing that these celebrities have faced similar things as well? Just going to pause very quickly and look at the chat. Yep, some people are saying it can feel worse. Yes, feeling eloquent enough. Thank you, everyone. Really, really, if you haven't looked at the chat, please do have a look, because people are being so honest and vulnerable with what they're sharing there as well. So we're just going to go through some case studies now. We've spoken about defining imposter syndrome. We've showcased how it might show up. And now let's go into some case studies of what imposter syndrome might look like in the workplace. So imposter syndrome when going for promotion. This might look like someone saying, I'm not going to put myself up for promotion yet because I'm probably not ready yet. And Tom is more likely to get it than me. Sorry if you're on this webinar and your name is Tom. Tom is just a fictional name. But is that something you might find yourself saying? So how is imposter syndrome showing up in this situation? I think that person is sounding like they're reluctant to claim their achievements. They maybe don't know what their achievements are. They're overvaluing expertise. They're saying, Tom looks like he knows so much. Tom looks so well dressed. Tom looks like he knows everything. And they're falling into that perfection trap. The idea that unless they come to work looking perfect, their emails are perfect, their client feedback is perfect, everything in their life is perfect, they're not going to get that promotion and they're not going to succeed. Again, do any of these situations kind of relate to you? And have you been in a similar situation? So we're going to spend 5 minutes here. Can I say 5 minutes? Yes. 5 minutes creating an achievements list. Again, if you've been to a Now You're Talking network event before, you probably have done this exercise before, but you know what? It's never too many times to create an achievements list. So we're going to spend 5 minutes. I want you to grab that pen and paper and write a list of all of your workplace achievements, however big or small, in the past year. And keep writing for the full 5 minutes. Just, you might need to get your work calendar out. You might need to get your personal calendar out. You might need to go on your LinkedIn. You might need to go on your professional Twitter and just start writing all of your achievements. So I'm going to give you guys 5 minutes to go through that. Again, if you have any questions, you can request to speak or mention it in the chat. Any specific questions can go in the Q&A as well. See, Rashmi needs to go. Thank you, Rashmi, for joining, and you will be sent the recording. So it's usually around now, the 2-3 minute mark, where people start looking around if we were doing this in person and saying, I've run out of achievements, can't think of anything else that I've achieved. What's going on? Maybe your imposter syndrome is even rising in this particular moment. But I would encourage you to keep pushing yourself. I know you've achieved other things. And you know what? If you've run out of workplace achievements, maybe you've been on maternity leave or you've taken a break for a couple of months, start thinking about your personal achievements as well that you've achieved. Hey, Nadine, thank you so much for sharing your experience. We can definitely get more into that in the Q&A, because I think that's something a lot of people face, that when they are, I always talk about this concept of like millennial managers, where there's like millennials, especially maybe younger millennials, that are becoming managers. And now they might even be managing people that are older than them. They might be in teams of people that are older than them, that are double their age even. So how do you deal with that? And that can drive imposter syndrome as well. So thank you for being honest and sharing your experience in the chat. So please continue writing your achievements list, but I'll just keep talking now because of time, and I want to make sure we have about 10-15 minutes for the Q&A. But hopefully you've seen from this exercise how important it is to create a list of achievements. So actually, this is a task that I do actually every 2 weeks on a Sunday evening. Got to love how exciting my life is. But no, honestly, it's really important. So I keep a Excel spreadsheet of all of my achievements. I do workplace and personal in one spreadsheet. And I just update it every 2 weeks on a Sunday evening. It takes about half an hour. And it's really important because it helps us normalize gratitude, normalize celebrating ourselves. And honestly, if you guys all look back at the list you've written right now, you'll be thinking, I forgot about this one. I am amazing. I forgot about this thing that I did. And I think we need to get into that practice of being our number one champion, our number one cheerleader, of recognizing all the amazing things that we've done and pushing through and celebrating those things. Really, really important. And I think an achievement list helps you do that. Sometimes people call it like a brag list, or I also have like in my work email, like a folder of whenever a client gives me like, says like, oh, Mary, you're amazing. Like, we're going to sign, you're incredible. I just drag that email into this folder in my work email, and it's called like my brag folder in my work email. And whenever I feel down and I'm just like, oh, I just lost that client, or I've had a really difficult day, I go into that folder and I can just read all of these amazing things that have happened. And it might even be like internally people saying, oh, you did a great job on that kind of thing. And an achievement list can be another way to kind of keep a list of things that will keep your spirits high and remind you of all the amazing things that you've achieved. I know some people that even just read their LinkedIn profile back to themselves and just think, wow, look where I started and look where I am now. So again, do let me know in the chat how you found that exercise. Was it really hard? Did it come quite naturally? And how will you try and embed this into your weekly, monthly routine? I really, really, really think that's important. Lastly, an achievement list is great for when you're going for promotion, like this case study says, because if you're anything like me, my memory is awful, like genuinely awful. So by having an achievements list, when it comes to promotion or when I'm trying to negotiate my salary, I'm just like, oh, you know what? Here is all the data and information that I need. And I just add a bit more info and I'm ready. Whereas when you're trying to negotiate your salary and they're asking you, what have you done in the past year? And you're running around trying to scramble and you're Googling negotiating salary tips, it's not going to work because there's so much nuance to your organization and what people achieve as perceive as good, and really remembering the achievements that you've accomplished to date as well. Yes, Zainab says she's been doing a lot of kind of transforming her mindset lately. Nina said it was really hard to do. Her mind went completely blank. it happens. And I think that's why we have to embed this into our regular routine as well. Amazing. Let's go to our next case study. So the next case study is about imposter syndrome when in meetings. I've spoken a bit about this already, but do you find yourself saying things like, I'm no expert in this, but am I making sense? I'm only a associate, I'm only an analyst, I'm only a graduate, but I think that's, who told you to say those things? Why are you kind of holding yourself back? Why are you letting your imposter syndrome show up in your language? So here you might say imposter syndrome is showing up as hesitating to contribute. You're in that meeting and you know the answer to something, but you're just not contributing because you're just like, wow, what if I stumble? What if people think, why is the graduate speaking? Using self-deprecating language, kind of just putting yourself down, caveating and saying, I'm a grad, I'm an analyst, I'm a manager, but I'm not a good manager. And just this overthinking. Like someone said in the chat that imposter syndrome can be exhausting. And I honestly agree, because you're just like trying to filter yourself in so many different ways. And then again, you look to your left and Tom is just at ease. He's like, I have a thought, I say it. I want to go for manager, I say it. And we're really just holding ourselves back. So again, really important to reflect on this. So we're going to spend about 5 minutes, maybe a little less, reframing the short list of common self-deprecating comments below. So I've given you 3 examples. Maybe you can share in the chat any other kind of self-deprecating comments that you might say. And we're going to think of opposing self-empowerment comments. So do you find yourself often, maybe you don't even say it, maybe you don't even profess it, but maybe you're saying it in your head, saying things like, I'm not good enough. I could never achieve that. You read someone's LinkedIn post and you're like, I could never, ever, ever achieve that. Maybe you're even saying, I am stupid. It's crazy. Like the things that we might say to ourselves. And I love that quote that says, be careful what you say to yourself because you are listening. It's so, so powerful. Be careful what you say to yourself because you are listening to what you're saying. So how would you turn these into more self-empowering comments? Please complete this list of 3 and then think about things that you might catch yourself saying to yourself as well. I'll give you guys a couple of minutes to do that. Thank you, everyone. I'm seeing people be really open and honest. I don't like to be a burden. I'm so far behind. Kind of making jokes about yourself being an expert. She has more experience. She must be right. Yeah, these are the ways that we might talk to ourselves. And Olivia makes a good comment in the chat, which is actually sometimes we're not even putting ourselves down, but we're actually saying these things because we don't want to offend other people and we want to put them upwards. But again, that comes back to the kind of people pleasing. Why are we doing those things? And what I'm hearing a lot of is this idea of kind of overvaluing expertise, saying when I know everything, I will apply for that role. When I feel confident, I'll do that. When? How about now? How about now? How about you try and push yourself forward now? Really, really important. So just take time to unpack these things and why we might say this. Yeah. Someone just messaged me saying they often say, I don't deserve this. I don't deserve this. Imagine, be careful what you say to yourself because you are listening. When you tell yourself that enough times, you might start to feel like, okay, maybe I don't deserve this role. Maybe I should quit. Maybe I don't deserve to be here. And that can show up in your body language. And then you start getting feedback that you seem distant from the team. You don't want to engage with what the team is doing. And they don't know it's because of your imposter syndrome. Yeah. Someone just messaged me again saying, why do I feel pressure to sound impressive, to be eloquent? Why do I have that feeling? Yep, qualifications. Again, yeah, really powerful. Okay, I don't know why I'm chilling. We need to go because time is running out. Okay. Let's go on to this final segment around combating imposter syndrome. We've defined it, we've explored it, we've looked at some celebrities, we've looked at some case studies. Let's go deep into combating imposter syndrome because that's what most of you are here for. 4 mindset shifts I want us to make about combating imposter syndrome. And please let me know again, which of these will you do in the chats? Which of these are really standing out to you? Firstly, believe it or not, I'm going to say maybe you need to accept it. Accept that it might not be possible to completely eradicate feelings of fraudulence or to never experience imposter syndrome. Instead, how can you use it to motivate you? I'm pausing there because it's really important. There's a level of acceptance that needs to come with imposter syndrome. Remember the quote that Michelle Obama said, that she still today, she still has that feeling of, do I belong here? Like, how did I get here? So what level of acceptance do you need to just say, you know what, I'm always going to have this feeling? And do you know what I tell myself? If I go somewhere and I don't feel imposter syndrome, I'm doing things that are too easy. It's too easy for me because I'm walking into this space and I don't feel any nerves. I don't feel any sense of, do I belong here? Then I've turned that into energy to tell myself it's too easy. I need to push myself further. Address it. So get comfortable asking about your performance and hearing both praise and constructive feedback regularly. Really, really important, particularly for a lot of us that might be working virtually or in hybrid environments. How often are you asking people for feedback? Whenever I do workshops with the Now Talking Network, always ask, thank you so much for having me. How did you find that? And I give them specific criteria to give me feedback on. Otherwise, people just say, yeah, you're great, fab, keep it moving. How often are you asking your line manager, your peers, you know what, I'm really trying to improve my public speaking. How did I do in that meeting? Is there anything else you would want to see me do in that meeting? Normalize this kind of fast feedback. It really, really helps with your imposter syndrome. And then people can be honest with you and say, oh, I was like you. I used to not contribute in the meetings, and this is how I learned to get over that. Discuss it. Come to sessions like this where you can talk about imposter syndrome. You can be honest and open with a range of amazing people. And you can realize that 70% of us suffer from it. And we can share stories and just feel more at peace because we know other people are going through it. So getting involved in employee resource groups or external networks like the Now You're Talking Network to discuss and share with like-minded peers, really, really important. And lastly, tackle it. Tackle it head on. Say, honestly, I've seen some comments in the chat where people are saying, this is the last day that I can deal with this. I really need to tackle this thing. And I think you can tackle it by doing things like utilizing an achievements list, utilizing social media to document your successes, your learnings, and your continuous growth. And also that mindset shift that I mentioned earlier around, is this imposter syndrome or are you just learning and growing? Are you giving yourself time and space to learn and grow like your colleagues have done? Or are you putting a crazy amount of pressure on yourself that literally no one can achieve? Again, that could be a sign of imposter syndrome. So again, some people honestly might need to take a picture of this and keep it on their phone. Some people really need to think about the angles that you might want to use. Which of these are resonating with you the most? Okay, addressing it. Yes. Yes, I'm seeing so many comments. If you do have questions, there's so many chat messages now. Please use the Q&A because I'm going to lose your questions and I hope to get to them very shortly. So as we close, I wanted to share some tools and resources for combating imposter syndrome. You can't completely combat this thing in a 1-hour workshop, however good I think this workshop is. Please utilize these kind of resources. So if we start on the top left, I've read all these books and listened to that podcast many, many times. Mindset is by Dr. Carol Dweck, and it's all about, she's the one that came up with the growth versus fixed mindset, really powerful way of thinking about how you think about how you embrace opportunities and grow. Really, really powerful. She's a Stanford professor. How to Own the Room is more about kind of public speaking, and Imposter Syndrome showing up about how you speak and how you portray yourself. Viv Goskop also has a podcast called How to Own the Room, so similar to the book. Squiggly Careers podcast, really amazing. Unapologetically Ambitious, always hard to say, by Shelley Archambault. She's really amazing. She was like a CEO in the US, wanted to be a CEO at 16 and became one at 30 of like an amazing tech company. I really recommend all of those books. Community groups. Again, I said a way to solve this is about discussing it. Find groups, not only the Now You're Talking network, but some other amazing communities that you can reach out to. Networking platforms, talking to people again, whether it's Clubhouse or if you prefer more one-to-one communication, you can go on Lunch Club or Twitter and find communities on Twitter. LinkedIn, sharing about your experiences with imposter syndrome on LinkedIn. And then lastly, organization and productivity. For a lot of people, imposter syndrome can become so overwhelming. They're kind of just disorganized in all aspects of their life. So do you need a calendar reminder to say, I need to complete my achievements list? Do you need to just kind of create an audit of your life and decide what your priorities are? These tools can help you do that as well. And I thought it'd be nice to end with some motivational messages. Like, again, this might be a nice slide to take a picture of or something. Let's read some of them. I love this one. Imposter syndrome is being so lit that you can't believe it. That's it, guys. Everyone on this call, or all of you, imposter syndrome is just being so lit that you yourself cannot believe it. But there's other things like I release self-doubt and fear and allow myself to be who I am. Doubt your doubts. Love literally all of these. I feel like I need to stick them up all over my house. And then I love this quote, or this tweet actually, that I saw, and I was like, I have to end this workshop with this. And someone tweeted, here's a true story of how I overcame imposter syndrome. One day, my phone auto-corrected it to, I'm past the syndrome, and I could never take it seriously again. And I just love it. It's so funny because it's like, come on, let's not overthink this thing. Let's embrace fully who we are and walk forward and embrace all of our successes and recognize we're on this journey of growing and learning and developing and becoming better people. And yeah, it kind of does sound like I'm past the syndrome, and that is ridiculous. So therefore, imposter syndrome is ridiculous to an extent. Just to share some last links about the Now You're Talking network. So as I mentioned at the start, we send a bi-weekly newsletter called In the Know, with opportunities, with information about our events, with amazing updates about what the incredible women in our network are achieving. We have over 1,000 women subscribed. You can scan the QR code using your phone on the right-hand side, sorry, and you can sign up to the newsletter. We are also creating a 2023 database of inspirational female speakers. So we just spoke about imposter syndrome. And if you want to combat your imposter syndrome by sharing your story and inspiring other people all around the world, every year we create a list of speakers that we showcase and share with companies and charities, and basically just profile female speakers that want to start their journey public speaking, and share unique stories. If you want to be added to that, you'll just need to complete the form by scanning this QR code. And then lastly, as I mentioned, we're hosting a side hustle showcase on Saturday, the 25th of March at the Roundhouse. It's going to be really exciting. Think female side hustlers, entrepreneurs selling their stuff, range of different panels and talks. It's going to be amazing. So you can scan the QR code to come along. It's going to be a great day. It's in London. So if you can make it down, please do join us. So that's it. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining. We have about 9 minutes left for questions. So please, if you have any questions, share them in the Q&A. And I'll just have a look at the chat now. Yes. Yes. Oh, so many amazing comments. Yes, someone else just mentioned another book that's giving them a mindset shift. Yes, some said they're gonna start asking for more feedback. Someone else said they sometimes feel silly documenting all of their achievements. Yeah, it can feel like that when you don't do it on a regular basis, but trust me, a lot of the people that want to go for promotion are doing exactly this thing. And it's important to get into that habit of normalizing, celebrating your own achievements and being your number one champion as well. Do you have a link to the side hustle event? Because I'm logged in via mobile. We'll send all of the links after the session. I'll send it to the We Are the City team. Yes, people sharing their LinkedIn. Okay, let's go to the questions. Julia says, your advice for how most junior people in the room can start influencing people. Okay, so Julia, I think you're asking, how can you influence people when you're more junior in your career? Really good question. I think that a lot of it is just about being confident in sharing your perspective. I think someone shared in the chat about saying, like, actually, how can you use being a millennial or Gen Z to your own advantage? You have a different stance and view of the world. So how can you embrace that? I also think people rate people when they have done the work. Like, one thing I love in talks and when I'm presenting to clients is coming with facts and figures. Like, everyone loves facts and figures because it showcases that you've done research and you know about the market or the context of something. So I love to come with like stats about the wealth management industry or the fintech industry, and people really see that, and people automatically just be like, okay, this person knows their stuff because they remembered like 3 stats. So I think those are some really easy techniques. And then the last one I would say is find like a peer or someone else in your team that can support you. There's something called the shine theory, really, really interesting. You can Google it to find out a bit more, but it's the idea that sometimes as women, we're better about talking about other people's achievements than our own. So shine theory is all about shining a light on other people's achievements. So it's so much easier for me to say, you know what, Julie is amazing. She did this, 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 and this. She spoke to this client. She won this client. But when it comes to talking about myself, it can feel like bragging. It can feel really weird. So how can you do that with other people in the workplace as well? Thank you, Julia, for your question. What advice would you give to specifically to women and ethnic minorities to feel more empowered in the workplace? Great question. Oh, wow, that's a whole nother workshop topic. But I think my main pieces of advice is doing a lot of this inner work on yourself, on understanding the value that you bring, understanding that you don't need to be grateful to be in an organization. You have value, you have perspective to bring, you've worked hard, you are aware of your achievements today, you are your own number one champion. So there's number one, working on your inner self-belief and combating those limiting beliefs that you might have. And then it's about operating in a way that you are able to make judgments about the workspace that you're in, because often what I don't like about some imposter syndrome talks is that they make it very much like you are the problem, like you have all these thoughts and you are the problem. But sometimes the problem is your workplace and your workplace does not treat you well, and you need to get to a point of inner self-confidence where you say, actually, for my own mental sanity, I need to quit. And this place isn't doing me any well. So I think top tip number 1, do the work on yourself. Top tip number 2, start to observe your environment. And then I think a lot of it is about like community, finding people that you do align with within your company. I'm sure there are some, and championing each other, discussing it as well. Thank you for that question. How to handle managers that themselves feel like they need to prove themselves and they cascade that pressure of never being good enough down to you. Thank you, Mahalia, for your question. I think this is an honest thing. Your line manager is a really big part of your workplace satisfaction. Yeah, I think honestly, I think especially now in this hybrid and virtual world, we can really reduce a lot of our work conversations to like transactional stuff. You give me the data, I send you the email, we have the meeting. But how often are you spending time with your managers and also your peers to actually have personal level discussions? When was the last time you went to lunch with that manager? Just to actually understand, what are their goals? What are their aspirations? What's happening in their life? Because oftentimes where I've struggled to communicate with someone or had some friction, is because we actually haven't put in the time to do those things. So we actually haven't said, you know what, work aside for a second. Where are you at in life? What's going on? How's your health? Are you trying to get married soon? Are you not looking to get promoted? Are you looking to get promoted? Like making sure you dedicate time to do those things. And then otherwise, really just making an assessment of how well you think that person is doing their role. Sometimes I honestly think communication and honest communication is the best policy. I'm not saying go and tell your boss that they're doing an awful job, but actually coming with concrete examples of, in this situation, you did this, and I really felt like I could have ran with that meeting, or do you mind if I could lead this particular meeting because it's really aligned to my growth? And if you're just honest, open with concrete examples to someone, it's really hard for them to be like, no. And if they are, and if they do that, then you probably just know it's not the right environment for you, or if something's wrong, it's probably a deeper rooted issue. So hopefully that answers your question, Mahalia. What's the one piece of advice for freezing in a meeting due to imposter syndrome? Hayley, very good question. Firstly, decipher why are you freezing? Are you freezing because of nerves? So then we can try and tackle the nerves. Are you freezing because you've forgotten what you're going to say? Are you freezing because you're unprepared and someone asked you a question? I think for a lot of women in particular, nervousness around meetings comes from nerves about thinking about what other people might think of them, but also not feeling prepared enough. So if you can do your utmost preparation and feel prepared, and then you're still freezing, then you can ask yourself, okay, maybe I have some nerves. And then you might have to do some of the like socializing with your colleagues thing to feel more comfortable around them. You might need to just do some tactics around public speaking. For me, a lot of that is about like, just like breathing before I say something and just like pausing. I speak quite quickly, you probably noticed on this workshop, but sometimes it's just about like taking a breath and then just delivering it, and in your most Michelle Obama-esque way, like your most confident self, just a little bit of fake it till you make it, and then you just start becoming it as well. Hopefully that helps, Hayley. Okay, we have 1 minute. So I'm going to quickly try and get through these questions. I'm feeling tired of corporate culture, which doesn't address this. I find it sad that this affects me, and so many other youngers and seniors don't seem to admit it. Any tips? I think you just answered this question, Lol. I think it's hard. I completely agree. I think that imposter syndrome is something so many of us struggle with. A lot of organizations are still not embracing how to help people, but find your community, find people to talk about this with in your workplace and outside of it as well. I think that can really help. Hopefully that answers. And lastly, Dan says, I'm quite soft-spoken and quiet, so I get spoken over pretty easily. This backs up my imposter syndrome because I think people don't want to hear what I have to say. Are there any techniques for being heard when I feel like I have something to add? If it's virtual, raise your hand. Go back to old school. Even in person, you might want to use a raise of hand. Maybe you want to send emails prior to a meeting because you're better with that. And then you know someone will say, oh, Dan, that email you sent before the meeting, let's talk about that now. So find subtle cues, find someone in the meeting that can be your ally and support you and back you up, like socialize what you're going to share in the meeting before the meeting as well. But we're at time and I really want to respect everyone's time. So hopefully I've answered your question. Let me know how you found this session. I'm seeing loads of great things in the chats. Please stay in contact with the Now You're Talking Network. And hopefully I'll see you guys at some point again soon. I'll just pass back to Ellie in case she has any closing comments.